Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. Tonight my guest is Kent Town Supervisor Maureen Fleming. We're going to find out why Maureen is running for re-election and why you should vote for her. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Armanda.
It's so nice to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Maureen, you've been the Kent Town Supervisor since 2014. Why are you running for re-election?
I'm running for re-election because I feel the job hasn't been quite completed. You know, when I first ran in 2013, I ran for a lot of reasons. Our taxes were going up every year, our general fund was going down every year, and we weren't seeing any improvements in the town. And I really started to make some improvements, working with our highway superintendent, working with other department heads to improve our infrastructure in the town, improve our equipment, and really make life a little better for residents of the town of Kent. There's some more things I want to get done. You know, we have term limits now in the town of Kent, so we can't run forever. But I think, you know, running one more time and trying to accomplish some of those goals is important for me and hopefully for the town.
So you've been endorsed by several different groups, and I'm going to ask you to name them all, but it's a long list. So we'll see if you remember all of them.
I do, because I worked hard for all of them. I've been endorsed by the Democratic Party. I am a Democrat. I've been endorsed by the Conservative Party, and I've run this will be my fourth race, and this will be the third time I'm endorsed by the Conservative Party. The only time I wasn't endorsed by the Conservative Party was they had their own candidate. And you know, the Conservative Party doesn't just endorse, you don't go and get signatures. People actually come out to a caucus to vote for you. And this time around, the vote was 31-14 for me against the Republican who's running against me. And if I digress just a second about conservatives, you know, a lot of people feel like, well, Republicans should always get the conservative endorsement. And actually, my opponent said something like that in the paper, how shocked he was that I, a Democrat, you know, got the conservative endorsement. And I think that speaks to that people in the Conservative Party aren't the Republican light party. They actually want a candidate who's going to look out for their interests. And fiscal conservatism is one of their top interests. So I'm proud to have that line. I also have the Libertarian line, which is on the ballot for the first time in years. The SAM line, which is the Serve America movement, and they were on the ballot last year. This is their first time endorsing candidates other than gubernatorial candidates. I have the Common Sense Party, although you won't see me on the Common Sense line, because if you have more than two major parties, you only get the little indicia of the party. But you'll see that in the corner of one of my lines. And I'm proud to have the endorsement of the New York State Troopers Police Benevolence Association, as well as the Westchester Putnam Central Labor Body, AFL-CIO, the Teamsters Local 456, and the Communication Workers of America Local 1103. I got through them all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
I'm pretty proud.
So what do you attribute this wide appeal of various and diverse organizations?
I think probably one of the top things we've done in the town of Kent under my leadership is we haven't raised taxes in the whole time I've been in office. And, you know, people think, oh, you know, that's a magic trick, you know, it's a sleight of hand. But it's not. And when people get their tax bills in January and they see 0%, they're happy because our school taxes go up every year, our state taxes, our county taxes. It's something at least that people can rely on. And not only that, but we've opened up government. We listen to people. You know, previously, before I was in office, they didn't even televise the workshop sessions of the town board meetings, and that's where the discussions take place. So people didn't get to hear what their neighbors had to say. We really encourage public speech. And I think those things, plus we're making progress without reaching our hands into your pocket, which not a lot of people can say. So I think that people realize this. People realize, you know, with unions backing me, we used to have a lot more union difficulties in the town of Kent, and we don't anymore. We really have cut our grievances to practically nil. I have a good relationship. I've negotiated 2 rounds of 4-year contracts with our unions. So I think there's just a general feeling of well-being.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And Kent is such a beautiful place, too.
is.
It really has a lot going for it. But in a way, that could be its detriment, too, because it's got a lot of watershed, right? It's got a lot of land that can't be touched for development. I know that fairly recently, maybe about 2 years now, we've been hearing about something called Kent County or Kent Country Square.
Right.
And there's been a lot of controversy about that. However, it would bring some development and commercial monies into the town. What's going on with that?
Well, when that project first came,
and can you tell us about what would
Sure.
be involved in?
When that project first came to Kent, everybody was pretty excited. It was going to be 2 hotels, an indoor water park, a convention center, and a truck stop. And the truck stop was the part that nobody was that crazy about right from the beginning. I mean, right at the beginning, you know, our deputy supervisor was kind of talking about, does that have to really be part of it? The developer at that point said, yes, that was part of it. So they've been in front of our planning board since February of 2018. And it's a long, arduous process. Unfortunately, people think that because somebody puts in plans for development, that it's necessarily going to happen. And that's not the case. And over the summer, we had scoping meetings, and our planning board, with the help of residents and input from the community and letters, put together a 37-page scoping document, asking all those questions that residents want to know. How is this going to affect the water table? What about mining? What about traffic? What about noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution? All of these questions are in this document. And before the developer puts a shovel in the ground, these questions have to be answered basically to everybody's satisfaction. And then there'll be public hearings. I mean, we'll have input from DOT, from DEC. So it's a long process with a lot of oversight. But the thing that most people have been upset about, not complaining, been upset about, is the truck stop. The truck stop and the mining are 2 of the biggest issues for our community. There are some people that don't want any kind of development and want Kent to be rural and, you know, stay as it is. And there are some people that realize that we need some economic development. They just want the right economic development. And there have been meetings about the truck stop, and there's been a very vocal group that have come to town board meetings, planning board meetings, voicing their concern about the truck stop. So I've been in contact with the developer's team saying, look, can you take that out? I mean, that is the biggest bone of contention right now is the truck stop. And right before the meeting on Tuesday night, I spoke to a member of the development team and was told that they had decided to take it out of the application, to take it off the plan. I didn't have anything written. I said, am I allowed to say this? You know, is this a definite? And was told, absolutely, and that something would come forth in the next couple of days. So I'm very pleased that that real point of contention is off the table at this point. And the town actually now, one of our councilmen just introduced a mining legislation to the town because our town code doesn't deal with mining. And what people are very afraid of, and I share their concern, is we have a site down the road called Kent Materials that was supposed to be an office complex, an industrial complex. It had all these iterations. And what it is right now is a pit. And the school board bought that piece of property after 3 rounds of votes, which was horrific for the people of Kent. And it's supposed to be a bus garage, but there was so much mining and so much noise. I mean, I had complaints almost every day from residents who were negatively impacted from that. And our building inspector had to go out and write it out, and it has sat vacant. And people are very afraid that that's what's going to happen with this project. So, you know, we're working to ensure that that doesn't happen. And if something goes in, that it's a good project that'll benefit our residents.
Okay. So what about the mining? Did the mining go with the truck stop? I mean, is there still going to be, are they still talking about mining at the proposed development?
Well, I don't know how the configuration now is going to change.
Why did
because
they have to mine? Do you know?
It's a hillside.
Okay.
It's a hillside. But perhaps with taking the truck stop out of the project, I don't know how that will change the rest of it. That remains to be seen. And also if the town regulates how mining is done. You know, right now the project was supposed to have been phased with phased buildings so that they couldn't just clear cut and flatten. That portions of the project would have to be built before any more mining could be done. So, you know, I think public participation has been very important in this, and it's really made us think about a lot of issues.
Is that property privately owned, or it belongs to the town?
Owned.
Okay, all right. How many acres are we talking?
Well, it's well over 100 acres, but part of the property is not going to be developed at all, and it's just going to be left in its natural state.
Is that
I think it's about 53 acres that they're planning to develop.
Is that part of the give back to the town that the developer is promising? I mean, when is the developer promising to give back to the town for all of this disruption during the construction phase?
Well, I think they're actually going to give it to a group. I don't think it's going to be donated back to the town. I think it's going to be given to an environmental group.
Okay. All right. So that, but like you say, it takes a long time for all these wrinkles to be smoothed out.
Takes a long time.
Okay, so people in Kent can calm down a little bit for now. Take a sigh of relief.
Well, I hope. I mean,
go for the next round.
Right, and we're going to be dealing with mining legislation in November, so that people can feel a little more confident, because nobody wants another Kent Materials situation in the town of Kent.
No, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, it's been terrible.
That was terrible. So speaking of construction, infrastructure. Infrastructure is very important to you. So tell me about what you've done and what you would plan to do if reelected.
Well, you know, Kent, we don't have sidewalks. We don't have a main street. My deputy supervisor is always talking about how we don't have a traditional main street in the town of Kent. So our infrastructure is basically our town buildings, our equipment, the roads. And so this year we had a major road reconstruction projects going on all around the town. And what we did was, unfortunately, our roads and our equipment were subject to years and years of neglect before I took office in 2014, and the current highway superintendent took office at the same time. We had equipment that was weld upon weld just to keep it together. We had a situation in our highway garage that equipment was buried in a hillside. So, oh please, it was terrible. So, I mean, we've built a salt shed. We're revamping our garage on Route 311. We've done some major work at our garage on 301. All of our departments have new equipment. Our highway department, our Lake Carmel Sanitation Department, our Recreation Department, our Lake Carmel Park Department, they all have new equipment because, like I said, I mean, my first winter in office, we had a snowstorm every week. And one weekend we had 4 trucks go down simultaneously. And you know, for some people, the only service they get is having their roads plowed because they don't use the recreation department, they're not building a shed, they don't have a dog to license, they mail their taxes in. What they really rely on is having good roads. So this past year in 2019, we bonded $1.5 million, most of it going to paving, because we thought, you know, if we continue to pave at the rate we were with what was in the budget, you know, what are we going to get done? A mile a year? This way, we're making more rapid progress, and we're going to actually sit down and talk about another bonding project for paving, so that the residents of our town will really have something that they can count on.
So you're a proponent of a community center.
I am.
And tell me why that's important. There is none now.
There is none. Like I was saying, Kent doesn't have a traditional main street, so it's not like people can go to the town square and, you know, sit with their neighbors. When I was growing up, my parish decided to have everybody tithe and build a parish center. And it was one of the most wonderful things because children could go there, teenagers, adults, seniors, and just enjoy themselves. There were, billiards table, ping pong table, there was a pool, a gymnasium, fitness equipment, and it was great, especially, well, I mean, I'm sure for my parents, that they knew where their teenager was and that we were safe and doing healthy stuff. I mean, we'd go out and have pizza afterwards, which maybe wasn't the healthiest thing, but I think it would be great in the town. And I have, when I first came into office, I approached every level of government to say, can we get funding for this? And every level of government said, well, no, you don't have a poverty component, you don't have this, we don't have this kind of money. So we've been talking about it. I've been talking to Bill Eustace, who is my deputy supervisor, and a couple of the board members to see if there's a way we could actually do this, because I think it would be great for the town of Kent. Right now we do a winter festival, we do the Backyard Olympics and a whole day of fun around the 4th of July, because I think, people keep saying, we live in a small town. We want to preserve the character. Well, part of a small town means that you get together and you enjoy each other and you enjoy your town. And let me tell you, our town center is so beautiful. And for years, the only people that enjoyed it were people that came to, pay their taxes, pay their tickets,
go to the library.
And now we have an all abilities playground that we got grant funding to build.
It's a beautiful little playground.
It is a beautiful playground. And we do more activities. We're actually having a trunk or treat event this Friday evening from 6 to 8. And on Monday, we're having the pumpkin glow. So we're trying to really bring community back to Kent.
So this is a physical center. You're thinking you want to
I would love that.
Construct something. Would it be at Sybil Crossing, which is where the library and the other public buildings are?
Well, we're looking at different locations. I mean, there's also, the town also owns some property up the hill behind the town center, so that could be another option. But I think in the general vicinity.
Okay. And what about what we were just talking about, the development of 2 hotels, and what else was going to be there?
Indoor water park.
Indoor water park.
Convention center.
And a convention center. Is that a place for a community center as well, or?
I mean, that could be something that we could talk about.
Yeah, that could be a nice give back if they.
That could be.
Not that I'm telling you what to do, Maureen.
Not that I'm saying I won't do it.
So before we go on, I just want to mention to folks that this year in New York State we have early voting, and the site to go if you want to vote early, and that's going to be between October 26th and November 2nd, is the Board of Elections, which is right here on Old Route 6 in Carmel. And we're talking about voting on Saturdays and Sundays and every day between October 26th and November 2nd. And I'm going to go vote. November 3rd, sorry. I'm going to go vote on a Saturday or a Sunday because I think that's really great and cool. So anyway, so what do you think about early voting, by the way? Is this a good change?
Great.
Or yeah?
I think it is. I think it's a very good change. I think, unfortunately, people lead very busy lives. And even though the polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., on Election Day, some people, you're out of town, you leave early. I mean, my husband retired last year, which I hear about how wonderful it is all the time, and he used to leave before 6, and by the time he would get home, after taking the train to the city, I mean, he always made a point to vote, but it's difficult for a lot of people. So I'm hoping this really encourages people to get out and vote.
Right. And of course, people can still vote on November 5th.
Absolutely, and I'll be there shaking their hands.
So do you like being a politician?
I'm not a politician. I hate that moniker. I really consider myself a government employee. I really consider myself a public servant because that's the part of the job that's important. The part of the job that's important is really being able to serve your community. And one of the things, and I still have people saying stuff to me, last year when we had really terrible snowstorms in March that, shut us down. I mean, people were without power for weeks. We had telephone calls with NYSEG every day, and the county and other towns, and I reported those calls every day to our residents. I gave them numbers to call. I gave them information about where to get dry ice, where, to come in and warm up at town hall, because people are out there and they don't know what to do. And I really felt like this is my opportunity to share with people, to make them feel not so alone, to give them what their alternatives are. And we did the same thing when we had the 2 tornadoes and the microburst in May. I gave out my cell phone number because some people, that was their only lifeline. They didn't have internet. They didn't have, any other access. That's the part of the job that I think is most important. I really believe in that. I've been in government before, never in an elected capacity before. I worked for the New York City Department of Corrections for years, and the Department of Sanitation, Department of Health. I think public service is really important. I really encourage people to get involved.
So you're a lawyer.
I am.
Are you still a practicing lawyer?
Very little. Who has time? It's too difficult to juggle. I keep my license current, and I have been Judge Reitz, rest his soul, used to appoint me to family court cases once in a while. I have some continuing clients, but I do next to. Let me put it this way: I couldn't support myself on the amount of legal work.
I appreciate your honesty. It's great to have an honest public servant.
Yes, thank you.
I won't call you that P word.
That P word. It's a nasty word.
I will not. What about, I don't know what happened, but I know that the town board was looking at Kent becoming a climate smart town.
Yes.
Did that happen yet?
It happened.
Yay.
It happened on Tuesday night. Wasn't quite a unanimous vote. We have one skeptic on the town board, but it was a 4-to-1 vote, and I'm very pleased. We have a very active conservation advisory committee in Kent that they have been around for years, and they are people that are really truly committed. We need additional volunteers, by the way, but they really brought it to us. And, they sat down with me, they sat down with Councilman Ruthven to really talk about what a good thing this would be for the town. So we had a town board meeting, I guess in September, where we discussed it, and on Tuesday we voted to become.
Okay.
So I'm very proud.
And that means, why it's important for towns is that it opens the door to some grant money, right?
It opens the door to some grant money, but it also will help us become more energy efficient. And to become greener, and I think that that's important in this day and age.
Yeah,
I mean, I recycle, I compost. It all adds up, and you have to do your part. And as a town, if we can do our part, I think that's great.
I think that there's a balance between development and preservation of green space and habitat. Where is that balance? Have you reached it, or in Kent?
Well, I mean, I don't know. This project that's, before our planning board right now is a real test of that. I think that, Kent, we're very lucky in Kent, and we're also a little unlucky in Kent because we have so much of our land is tied up by the DEC and the DEP, and it's not developable, which is also a good thing. I mean, Kent is a beautiful place. That's why we all moved up here, those of us that moved up here. And some people were born and raised here. I moved here because of how wonderful it is. So I don't ever want to destroy that character. I tell this story sometimes. We have a cousin who lives in New Jersey, and she lives in a beautiful home on a beautiful piece of property. And to get to her home, you have to go down a main road, which is strip mall.
Yeah.
And it's horrific. I would never want to see that in Kent. I really would not. And so I think we walk a fine line. I mean, we want to bring economic development, but we also want to be respectful of what a beautiful place this is.
Do you get assistance from the county as far as economic development goes?
Well, they just actually appointed a new head of the Economic Development Corporation. In the past, we have met with the Economic Development Corporation, and actually the past president was very active in trying to bring, small businesses, but sustainable businesses into town. So I'm hoping, we haven't had a president for a little while now, so I'm hoping the new president, I'm going to be setting up a meeting with her, and I'm hoping we will be able to get some help.
We only have 2 minutes left,
Okay.
but I did want to touch on taxes because that's a very prickly issue. You say the school, the property, taxes go up every year, but you've kept taxes, town taxes, stable.
Absolutely.
Is there anything we can do about those taxes going up every year?
The school taxes? Well, unfortunately, the governor had encouraged a shared services initiative. And the county and the supervisors of the different towns got together to talk about how we could consolidate some services. And
it was an ongoing process.
It was an ongoing
right?
thing. And there weren't that many things we came up with because what everybody at the table said was, it's the schools. Yeah. I come from New York City where we had a schools chancellor for the schools in the entire city. In Putnam County, we have 6 school districts and we have under 100,000 people.
And isn't it true that the actual students' numbers are shrinking,
Yes.
but the amount of money we spend on each student is growing, and each one of those districts has a superintendent and an entire administrative staff?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, if you had a chancellor instead of 6 superintendents who, I'm not saying what they all make, but
they're all over 200,000.
Yeah, I think in the Carmel Central School District, it's over 250,000. So, I think we have to start thinking that because we don't want to compromise our students.
No.
In any way. We want our schools to be excellent, but we have to start thinking, I think administrative costs is a good way to start that conversation.
So in 30 seconds, can you look in that camera and tell the voters in Kent why they should re-elect you?
Okay. I would hope voters come out to re-elect me because I really feel that I've done a good job for the town of Kent. In my time in office, I've increased the general fund while refurbishing all our departments. I'm always there for our residents, and I'm always available to them. I listen, and I care. And I hope you come out and vote for me, starting early voting October 26th, or come out on November 5th and shake my hand. I'll be outside Town Hall. Thank you.
Maureen, you're a great public servant. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Armanda. It's been a pleasure.
And I just want to thank, of course, the volunteer crew that comes out so faithfully, and all of the, I'm getting a big wave from someone behind the camera here. Thanks, Ginny. And, of course, the viewers. And what can I say but take advantage of your franchise and go out and vote.